Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It is August 4th, 2026, and we are going to read from Judges 18 and Acts 22. All right, so Judges 18. We're going to continue this story that we started yesterday with this man named Micah who stole some money from his mother. His mother was distraught, and he decided, guilty conscience, to give it back. And for some reason, his mother says, "Oh, thank you. Let's make a graven image. Let's make our own idol and we'll worship that." And Micah goes all in and even hires away this Levite priest who came to him. So we're seeing nothing but sin here. And we said that essentially as we're finishing Acts, we're seeing this. Now there was no king in Israel, so they all did what they wanted to do. And the story's just getting more and more sinful as we continue. So let's go ahead. We're going to read Judges 18. In those days, there was no king in Israel. And in those days, the tribe of the Danites was seeking an inheritance for itself to dwell in. For until that day, their inheritance among the tribes of Israel had not fallen to them. So we saw at the end of Joshua that the land was all divided up amongst the tribes. So Dan got their allotment, and they have not taken it over. So the children of Dan sent 5 men of their family from their territory, men of valor from Zorah and Eshtaol, to spy out the land and search it. They said to them, "Go search the land." So they went to the mountains of Ephraim to the house of Micah and lodged there. So not only did Dan not take their inheritance, but now they're saying, well, let's go find something that's easier for us to take. So they're just ignoring what God gave them to go get what they want. And they end up at Micah's house. Or Micah's house, however we're going to pronounce it. Let's try Micah all today. All right, so we are in verse 3. While they were at the house of Micah, they recognized the voice of the young Levite. They turned aside and said to him, "Who brought you here? What are you doing in this place? What do you have here?" So apparently our Levite is well known by people. Verse 4, he said to them, "Thus and so Micah did for me. He has hired me, and I have become his priest." So they said to him, "Please inquire of God, that we may know whether the journey on which we go will be prosperous." And the priest said to them, "Go in peace. The presence of the Lord be with you on your way." Now we don't actually have any indication that he really inquired of God. And as we commence with our story, it kind of becomes apparent that he didn't do so. He just told them what they wanted to hear. Verse 7, so the 5 men departed, and they went to Laish, and they saw the people who were there, how they dwelt safely in the manner of the Sidonians, quiet and secure. There were no rulers in the land who might put them to shame for anything. They were far from the Sidonians, and they had no ties with anyone. Then the spies came back to their brethren at Zorah and Eshtaol, and their brethren said to them, "What is your report?" So they said, "Arise, let us go up against them, for we have seen the land, and indeed it is very good. Would you do nothing? Do not hesitate to go and enter to possess the land. When you go, you will come to a secure people and a large land, for God has given it into your hands, a place where there is no lack of anything that is on the earth." So they find this group of peaceful people who aren't bothering anybody, and they say, "Ooh, hey, we can wipe them out. That'll be easy. Let's not do that hard thing that God wanted us to do of taking the land that he gave us. Let's go find the peaceful people we can beat up and take what they have." So we're seeing sin. All right, verse 11. And 600 men of the family of the Danites went from there, from Zorah and Eshtaol, armed with weapons of war. Then they went up and encamped in Kirjath-jearim in Judah. Therefore they call that place Mahanadan to this day. There it is west of Kirjath-jearim. And they passed from there to the mountains of Ephraim and came to the house of Micah. Then the 5 men who had gone to spy out the country of Laish answered and said to their brethren, "Do you know that there are in these houses an ephod, household idols, a carved image, and a molded image? Now therefore consider what you should do." Well, they should go wipe out that idolatrous person who is declaring themselves an enemy of God by having false idols in their house. Is that what happens? Well, we'll see in verse 15. So they turned aside there, and they came to the house of the young Levite man, to the house of Micah, and greeted him. The 600 men armed with their weapons of war, who were of the children of Dan, stood by the entrance of the gate. And the 5 men who had gone to spy out the land went up. Entering there, they took the carved image, the ephod, and household idols, and the molded image. The priest stood at the entrance of the gate with the 600 men who were armed with weapons of war. When these went into Micah's house and took the carved image, the ephod, the household idols, and the molded image, the priest said to them, "What are you doing?" Well, they said to him, "Be quiet, put your hand over your mouth, and come with us. Be a father and a priest to us. Is it better for you to be a priest in the household of one man, or that you be a priest to a tribe and a family in Israel?" So the priest's heart was glad, and he took the ephod, the household idols, the carved image, and took his place among the people. So they just adopt the idol. Hey, we'll just steal it. It'll be ours. Hey, so-called man of God, the Levite, why don't you help us rob and plunder this person who took you in and take all of his stuff? Yeah, okay, that's cool. Hey, I could be a priest to 600 is greater than being a priest to one. And you think about the false teachers and prophets running around today. Get back up at verse 27. Then they turned and departed and put the little ones, the livestock, and the goods in front of them. When they were a good way from the house of Micah, the men who were in the houses near Micah's house gathered together and overtook the children of Dan, and they called out to the children of Dan. So they turned and said to Micah, "What ails you that you have gathered such a company?" Yeah, what are we doing? So he said, "You have taken away my gods which I made in the priests, and you have gone away. Now what more do I have? How can you say to me, 'What ails you?'" And the children of Dan said to him, "Do not let your voice be heard among us, lest angry men fall upon you, and you lose your life with the lives of your household." So now they're threatening him. Then the children of Dan went their way. When Micah saw that they were too strong for him, he turned, and he went back to his house. So they took the things Micah had made, and the priest who had belonged to him, and went to Laish, to a people quiet and secure, and they struck them with the edge of the sword, and burned the city with fire. There was no deliverer, because it was far from Sidon, and they had no ties with anyone. It was in the valley that belongs to Beth Rahab. So they rebuilt the city and dwelt there, and they called the name of the city Dan, after the name of Dan their father, who was born of Israel. However, the name of the city was formerly Laish. So they beat up some helpless people. They didn't trust God to give them their inheritance. Instead, they went and beat up some helpless people and stole what they had, just like they stole the idols from Micah. Verse 30, Then the children of Dan set up from themselves the carved image, and Jonathan, the son of Gershom, the son of Manasseh, and your Bible might say Moses, so this might actually be a descendant of Moses, and his sons were priests to the tribe of Dan until the day of the captivity of the land. So they set up for themselves Micah's carved image, which he made all the time that the house of God was in Shiloh. So now they don't need to go. I don't need to go to the tabernacle that God said we needed to go to. We have our own shrine, and we have our own images that we're going to worship instead. There was no king, and the people did what they pleased. Let's go over to Acts 22. All right, so Paul has been arrested, bound over by the Jews to the Romans. They caused a riot to get it to happen. The Roman centurion that came out to investigate the riot thought that Paul was a famous assassin, come back, maybe caught in the act. And when Paul talks to him in Greek, he says, "Wait a minute, you're not a thug, you're educated. What's going on?" Paul says, "Well, I'll tell you. Let me go talk to the people, and we'll straighten this out." And the centurion says, "Okay, let's do that." So now we're going to get Paul's speech to the crowd. Acts chapter 22, Brethren and fathers, hear my defense before you now. And when they heard that he spoke to them in the Hebrew language, they kept all the more silent. Now, technically, it would have been Aramaic, because the Hebrews spoke then. Then he said, I am indeed a Jew, born in Tarsus of Cilicia, but brought up in this city at the feet of Gamaliel, taught according to the strictness of our father's law, and was zealous toward God as you all are today. I persecuted this way to the death, binding and delivering into prisons both men and women, as also the high priest bears me witness, and all the council of the elders, from whom I also received letters to the brethren, and went to Damascus to bring in chains even those who were there to Jerusalem to be punished. So the charge they were leveled against him was that he was speaking bad about Moses and the law. And he's telling them, look, I am more law than any of you. Okay, I was born in Tarsus, which meant he was born among Hellenistic Jews. But then he came to Jerusalem, where he was raised and educated by Gamaliel, who was one of the most revered law teachers, rabbis there is. I know the law forwards, backwards, upside down. You will find no bigger champion of the law than me. You would have found at the start of Acts no bigger enemy of the way than me, because I thought they were against the law too, but something happened. What happened? He's going to tell them. Verse 6, now it happened as I journeyed and came near Damascus at about noon, suddenly a great light from heaven shone around me, and I fell to the ground and heard a voice saying to me, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? Gives him his testimony. So I answered, who are you, Lord? And he said to me, I am Jesus of Nazareth, whom you are persecuting. And those who were with me indeed saw the light and were afraid, but they did not hear the voice of him who spoke to me. So I said, what shall I do, Lord? And the Lord said to me, arise and go into Damascus, and there you will be told all things which are appointed for you to do. And since I could not see for the glory of that light, being led by the hand of those who were with me, I came into Damascus. Now, he tells this story 3 times, and some of the little details change a little bit. The main details never change. In this one, we find out that, okay, the people that were with him did hear something and saw something, but they didn't really know what it was. Verse 12, then a certain Ananias, a devout man according to the law, the very thing you accuse me of, having a good testimony with all the Jews who dwell there, and probably some of them in Jerusalem know who Ananias is. Hey, he's a law guy. He came to me, and he stood, and he said to me, Brother Saul, receive your sight. And at that same hour I looked up at him. Then he said, the God of our fathers has chosen you, that you should know his will, and see the just one, and hear the voice of his mouth. For you will be his witness to all men of what you have seen and heard. And now why are you waiting? Arise and be baptized, and wash away your sins, calling on the name of the Lord. Now it happened when I returned to Jerusalem and was praying in the temple that I was in a trance, and I saw him saying to me, make haste and get out of Jerusalem quickly, for they will not receive your testimony concerning me. And some of these Jews were probably there when that happened, and they know that story. So I said, Lord, they know that in every synagogue I imprisoned and beat those who believe on you. And when the blood of your martyr Stephen was shed, I also was standing by, consenting to his death, guarding the clothes of those who were killing him, and some of them knew that. Then he said to me, depart, for I will send you far from here to the Gentiles. And they listened to him until this word, and then they raised their voices and said, away with such a fellow from the earth, for he is not fit to live. They listened to him right up until he said, hey, you know what? I think God wants the Gentiles to be part of God's people. That they can't stomach. They go crazy. Then as they cried out and tore off their clothes and threw dust into the air, the commander ordered him to be brought into the barracks and said he should be examined under scourging, so that he might know why they shouted so against him. And as they bound him with thongs, Paul said to the centurion who stood by, is it lawful for you to scourge a man who is a Roman and uncondemned? He plays his trump card. When the centurion heard that, he went and told the commander, saying, take care what you do, for this man is a Roman. And that's how good of a trump card that is. All Paul had to do was say, I'm a Roman, and everyone's got to stop and go, what if he is? We're in trouble. Because if we've whipped a Roman or scourged him or beat him, penalty is death. Stop. Go to the boss. Then the commander came and said to him, tell me, are you a Roman? He said, yes. The commander answered, with a large sum I obtained this citizenship. Now that would have been illegal. You can't buy citizenship. So the commander is essentially saying, hey, yeah, I can say I'm a citizen too, but if I'm examined for it, that's going to fall apart. Anyway, that's what's going to happen with you, right? And Paul said, but I was born a citizen. Then immediately those who were about to examine him withdrew from him, and the commander was also afraid after he found out that he was a Roman, and because he had bound him. The next day, because he wanted to know for certain why he was accused by the Jews, he released him from his bonds and commanded the chief priests and all their council to appear. And he brought Paul down, and he set him before them. And we'll go find out tomorrow what happens then. So until then, may God bless the reading of His Word, and may God bless you. Bye.